Hey, great day in the morning, everybody. We're right back on the scene with the Gospel Record Machine. My name is Brother Sam Tate. You're listening to Gospel Gems, where playing the gospel is what I do, and I like my job. By the way, friends, if you happen to be driving around out there today, thank you so very much for letting us ride along with you. After all, it takes people like you to make people like me, and I just want to thank Backstage rubbing shoulders with the stars and all. The disc jockeys, they were characters, but some of the artists that I've had a chance to meet, I used to drive the legendary Otis Redding around, sitting on the dock of the bay. James Brown knew I liked to fly. He'd let me go out and get on his Learjet. Michael Jackson, Jerry Butler, Solomon Burke, all of them. Joe Simon, who was the radio station for the interviews.
Welcome back, Mr. Tate, for another fascinating conversation with you.
Well, thank you very much, Sister Addie. Once again, we're excited about being here today.
All right, let's talk. When I think of Otis Redding, I think sitting on the dock of the bay, his last recording before an untimely death in 1967. He was only 26 years old. This classic hit moves me today, same as long ago. In 1968, the song became the first posthumous #1 record on both the Billboard Hot 100, R&B charts, and the album, The Dock of the Bay, was the first posthumous album to reach #1 on the UK album chart. His nickname was the King of Soul. So young and so talented. When he came to Greensboro for concerts, you and he were about the same age. What was Otis Redding like?
Well, he was one of the nicest guys in the world. As a matter of fact, first of all, Sister Addie, he was about 4 years older than I was. I was about 22. He was 26 when he passed, but he was one of the nicest guys in the world. He didn't have a lot of ego and all, if you know what I mean, like so many artists and entertainers have. But I would interview him. Right after the interview, he always wanted me to take him to the Carlotta Supper Club. So I had a little chance to, build up a rapport with him. But he was a very nice, unlike some of the other artists who were sort of cocky, and I won't call any names right now, but he was a very nice guy.
Well, that's good to hear. And it looks like he had a reason to love the Greensboro area.
Oh, yes, he did. We'll talk about that at another time.
Okay. Mr. Michael Jackson, who needs no introduction, but the king of pop, was one of the most culturally significant figures in the 20th century. What he did was he broke records. He was significant not only in his music, but he broke racial barriers. He began performing at age 6 with his brothers, the Jackson 5. Mr. Tate, tell us about the night that you walked into his dressing room to meet 10-year-old Michael.
Yes, I'll never forget that night, Sister Addie. They were appearing at the Greensboro Coliseum, and of course, I was backstage, one of the disc jockeys and all, and I just happened to be walking down the hall, passing his dressing room, and he was in there by himself. So I just went in and sort of struck up a conversation, or at least tried to. He was the nicest little kid in the world, but it was almost like his mind was a million miles away. Some people you have to pull out of them, ask them a question, you have to pull out of them everything. But I had a chance to talk with him probably about 10 minutes or so, but it was like his mind was a million miles away. Like he was worried about getting out there on stage and messing up, you know?
Oh, wow. But very nice, nice manners. And of course,
Yes.
that was a 10-year-old Michael with a little afro.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes. It was unlike the later years.
Did you have a sense of him being um, shy and withdrawn?
Yes, very much. Very shy, very withdrawn, not a lot to say. And I understand those kids, especially Michael, never had a chance to experience childhood. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Always protected. And I understand, and this is what they say, that even during the rehearsals, that if they messed up when they were up there dancing, practicing and all, if they messed up, they were disciplined by their dad.
Yeah, that's rough, but
Yeah.
it seems to be the price you have to pay for stardom, at least in some cases. Jerry Butler, the Iceman,
Right.
was smooth as singing rhythm and blues. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with the Impressions in 1991 with his childhood friend, Curtis Mayfield. Not bad for a youth born in 1939 in Mississippi. Butler had over 55 Billboard pop and R&B chart hits as a solo artist. He Will Break Your Heart, Let It Be Me, Only the Strong Survive. So, of course, he was also inducted into the National Rhythm and Blues Hall of Fame in 2015. What was it like meeting the great Jerry Butler?
He was one of the greatest guys in the world to meet, Sister Addie. I remember one night, and he was a little. I mean, he tried to pull a little trick. He was a little devilish. Anyway, to make a long story short, he was appearing at A&T State University's homecoming, and he needed a ride from the hotel over to A&T State University. And I was trying to impress this young lady. I said, "Look here, baby, you want to go with me to pick up Jerry Butler?" Oh yeah, they knew I knew him, and they asked me if I'd go pick him up. So I said, "Do you want to go?" Yeah, yeah. Anyway, we went and picked him up, Sis Addie, and on the way back to A&T, I'm driving. The young lady Delcine was in the middle, and of course Jerry was over on the right at the window there. So he was going to make a play, and he was deviling me. He's gonna make a play for my lady, right? So it got right quiet in the car. He looked out his window and started singing "For Your Precious Love," and she ate it up. I said, for years, he said, "How's our girl Delcine doing?" I said, "Man, I saw what you were trying to do," but we laughed about it for years. I guess I shouldn't have told that, but he's gone on now, and
He threw him aside because you know he was just playing.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Um,
You have told me that even in the 1960s and 70s, Jerry Butler had crossover appeal. You mentioned that even in the Greensboro area, he was booked at white clubs. Tell us
mhm.
about that.
Yeah, there was one club. I went to see him there one night. It was predominantly white, called the Plantation Supper Club in Greensboro. And I mean, he would, unlike many of the artists who would go all over the stage, he was cool. They call him the Iceman, Mama, because the Iceman make you feel cool. The Iceman, baby, makes you feel cool. But he was really cool. Yeah.
He felt at home with the crowd.
Oh yes, yeah, by all means, yeah. He didn't have any problem with black or white.
That's impressive. Butler was also a songwriter. He co wrote For Your Precious Love With Otis Redding, they wrote, I've Been Loving You Too Long. That was in 1965. With Curtis Mayfield, He Will Break Your Heart, Find Another Girl, I'm a Telling You. He seemed to have a quiet brilliance. What do you think?
Oh yes, yes, he was extremely, uh, you know, cool. Like I say on stage. One thing I liked about Jerry Butler was that guitar of Curtis Mayfield. You know, they grew up together. But anytime one of his records got started, you could always identify that unique guitar of Curtis Mayfield.
Wow, behind the scenes.
Yeah. Oh yes.
Okay, let's travel back to the studio. What stir, think about it, did these songs blow up? For Your Precious Love, I've Been Loving You Too Long, He Will Break Your Heart, Only the Strong Survive, Moon River, Need to Belong, Make It Easy on Yourself, Let It Be Me, Hey Western Union Man, Never Give You Up. Talk to me about those songs on the radio and what the audience experienced.
Well, my favorite one was "He'll Break Your Heart," but I guess his signature song was "For Your Precious Love." You know, I think that was the very first one that they did. But "He'll Break Your Heart." Here again, I really like that guitar of old Curtis Mayfield. You know, yeah. But no, no, Jerry Butler. I mean, those were. It wasn't Motown, but it was right up there with the Motown sound. You know.
So it was much requested.
Oh yes, oh yes.
And
Jerry Butler.
did you take requests on the radio?
Yes, we did, and that's one of the things that we did. And I found out, you know, the best way in the world to get an audience is make the people the stars of the show. You know, and you call their name out on the radio, and they really like that. You know.
Absolutely. They become minor stars.
Yeah, yeah.
During his life and after music, Jerry Butler did not impress others as flamboyant because he didn't need to. He was so talented. But he stayed married to the same woman, Annette, from 1959 until she died in 2019. Quiet and steady, like you say. I didn't know. Butler had a government job as a commissioner for Cook County, Illinois from 1985 to 2018. He chaired the board of a hospital health committee and served as vice chair of the construction committee. I say all that to ask, giving Mr. Butler a grade for niceness, what grade would you give him?
I'd have to give him a 10, Sister Addie. He was just as nice as could be. Like I say, he wasn't cocky, wasn't arrogant. A few of the others had lots of ego and all. You know, I won't call any names, but you can probably imagine. But I give him a 10.
You know, being a star can change you. And
Yes.
Mr. Butler was right up there with all of these hits and with all of this talent and performing for so many years. He had a reason to be cocky, but I guess he didn't need to.
Yes, right.
Let's talk about Solomon Burke. He was one of the founding fathers of soul music in the 1960s. Born in Philadelphia in 1940, his family was deeply rooted in the church. Burke himself was a preacher at age 12, and his godfather was Daddy Grace. Talk to us about your encounter with Mr. Burke. What was he like?
He was a very nice guy, and you know, as you mentioned a few moments ago, he was a minister, even though he was a rock and roll singer, rhythm and blues. I know a lot of times he would be backstage in his dressing room, waiting to come out on stage, back there reading his Bible, Sister Addie, if you can imagine that. And every time I would finish interviewing him on the radio, the first place he wanted me to take him was the Daddy Grace Church, the house of prayer. And I thought that was very interesting.
Well, clearly in his life, his religion was important to him throughout his life. I love the story of Burke being the original soul man. The story goes that after signing with Atlantic Records, he hit up against a real struggle that he had been plagued with from his early years. The attraction to secular music on one hand and his allegiance to the church on the other. He refused to be classified as rhythm and blues singer due to the perceived stigma of profanity and the reputation of this genre as devil's music. Burke said, I told them about my spiritual background and what I felt was necessary, and that I was concerned about being labeled rhythm and blues. What kind of songs would they give me to sing? Because at my age and my position in the church, I was concerned about saying things that were not proper, that sent the wrong message. Jerry Wexler, an Atlantic executive, said, we're the greatest blues label in the world. You should be honored to be on this label, and we'll do everything we can. But we have to work with you, and you have to work with us. To mollify Burke, it was decided that they would market him as a singer of soul music after he had consulted his church and won approval for that term. A Philadelphia DJ said to Burke, you're singing with your soul, and you don't want to be an R&B singer. So what kind of singer are you going to be? Burke shot back, I want to be a soul singer. The rest is history.
Amen. Amen.
You know, a soul singer coming out of the whole idea of the church. So now we have a little more of the story about why it's called soul music.
Right, right. Well, you know what, and I can appreciate that his predicament, for the lack of a better word, because you can't serve two gods at the same time. I sort of ran into that. You know, I used to be a little rock and roll disc jockey for about 28 years, old Sam the Sham. But once I started playing gospel, you know, my nationally syndicated oldie goldie gospel show, Gospel Gems, I made up my mind I could not do both. You can't serve two gods.
Wow. So it is a personal affiliation in your
Yes.
career as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. You've told us about so many greats. You've met so many along the way. What other artists do you want to give an honorable mention to?
Well, are we talking secular or gospel or both?
We're talking secular right now.
Okay. I had a chance to meet Wilson Pickett. Of course, my favorite, my idol was Sam Cooke. I didn't get a chance to meet him. He died right before I had a chance to meet him. I met Stevie Wonder. I made a presentation to Stevie there once. Joe Tex, Garnett Mims, and many others. But those are just a few of the second.
Did you ever have a conversation with Stevie Wonder?
Oh yes, I did. I was on the state level with the American Cancer Society some years ago, and he was in Charlotte, North Carolina, and they wanted me to go down and make a presentation to him. So that was an opportunity. The one opportunity that I had the chance to spend a little time with him. He was
What
another,
kind of person was he?
huh?
What kind of person was he?
He was very nice. He was a very nice person. I know not too long before that, he got in a terrible accident near Greensboro, a car accident, and he almost got killed. But my cousin, who was a nurse at the hospital in Winston-Salem, she took care of Stevie Wonder. So she was all
Ah,
excited about that.
well, that is impressive.
Yeah.
Told me that Mr. Joe Simon was kind of a funny guy in terms of always being able to tell a joke. That he actually had a few performances with another friend of yours, Mr. Pig.
Yeah. Yes, Big Meat Markham. And they I didn't realize until years later when Joe told me that he not only was a great singer and wound up being Bishop Joe Simon, but he was also a great comedian. And he told me a lot of funny things. I got to tell you this. Old Joe Simon thought he was going to embarrass me in front of my buddies there once. He said, Sam the Sham was down there at James Brown's funeral, leaning over the casket, crying like a natural born baby. James Brown went off owing him some payola. You know what payola is, little money under the table, but that wasn't true.
To cry in the casket. He
But
was a
my
comedian.
buddy, yeah, my buddy's got a kick out of that though.
Absolutely. You know
Yeah,
what? They may be stars, but they're regular people too.
they
And
really are.
and when
And
they
and
can
you,
and when they can be around somewhere one who they can let their hair down, I'm
yes.
sure that it's really a relief.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Because, they're always on stage, so to speak, whether they were on stage or whether they were downtown out in the general public, they always had to put on this facade.
That's right. Got to keep the rep up. Mr. Gospel Gems, Sam Tate. Gospel music is the soul of Black people, of Black Americans. We've talked about Sunday morning quartets on the radio. That was a staple ever since the 1940s in many Black homes. Was that how you were introduced to the music?
I was actually introduced to the music many years ago as a little boy, listening to John R. on WLAC, Nashville, Tennessee, and and then when I came to A&T State University, I started hanging around WEAL, the local soul station there, and I hooked up with brother Alfred G. Richards, the gospel announcer there, and G had a tremendous repertoire. I mean, he was not only quartet or just choirs. He had a good blend of both music. And I got a lot of my, I guess, taste for gospel music. And then I would go out and follow him and Merle Watson, who also played gospel, follow them to the gospel shows and all. So that's why I really got introduced to that music.
Wow, that's impressive to be introduced by the greats.
Yeah.
We've talked so much about artists who began in church, but money took them to secular music. Watching the story of Mahalia Jackson reminded me that there were superstars able to make a very good living singing gospel music. Over the years, what groups were superstars of gospel music?
All right, of course, there was always Sam Cooke and the Soul Stirrers, you know. The Mississippi Mass Choir. You remember Shirley Caesar?
Mm-hmm.
Evelyn Turrentine Agee, and of course, Lee Williams. We've talked about him. The Williams brothers, the Jackson Southerners, the Georgia Mass Choir, James Bignon, and Deliverance, keeping in mind that James was the lead singer and director of the Georgia Mass Choir for many years. Dottie Peoples, the Five Blind Boys of Alabama, Joe Lagan and the Mighty Clouds of Joy, the Dixie Hummingbirds, Spencer Taylor, and the Highway QCs. By the way, the Highway QCs was the group that Sam Cooke started out with before he actually went with the Soul Stirrers. If you listen to some of those songs, he's just a little boy, his voice still cracking and all, but he started out with the Highway QCs at the age of 16, and the Highway QCs was the proving ground for the Soul Stirrers. So he went on to be with the Soul Stirrers. And of course, then there was Harvey and the Canton Spirituals, and we could go on and on.
All right. And did you get a chance to interview any of these groups?
Oh yes, most of them. I got a chance to interview most of them. Yeah, from Shirley Caesar, Evelyn Turrentine Agee, Lee Williams. You know, the Jackson Southerners, Huey Williams, and all. Um, James Bignon, of course. Yeah, Dottie Peoples. I had a great interview with her in Atlanta some years ago. The Five Blind Boys of Alabama. Uh, uh, I can't think of the leaders. Clarence Fountain, yeah, was a leader there. And I asked Clarence, you know, there was the Five Blind Boys of Alabama and the Five Blind Boys of Mississippi. And I asked him once, I said, during an interview, I said, why did they have the two groups? He said it was sort of like the battle of the band. You know, each group, the ones from Mississippi and one from Alabama, had their own following. But when both groups got on stage, sort of like the battle of the bands, the crowd was bigger, so they made more money, you know, and the love offerings and all. So I guess it sort of boiled down to money anyway. But yeah, I had the great interview with him. Uh, 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 the Dixie Hummingbirds, you know, and many of the others. Most of them, I got not only interviews but promos. Got them to give promos for the show. You know,
Do
Ira Tucker.
okay. Do we have quartets today?
Not like we used to. I know some of the older quartet singers, like Willie Neal Johnson. You know, Willie Neal at the National Quartet Conventions in Birmingham, Alabama. He always had a session where they tried to get the younger groups to come in so they wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel and make the same mistakes over the years with the record companies and everything else that the older guys and quartets, the mistakes that they made, but it's rapidly becoming a lost art. You
Yes.
know, the quartets are. And it's gotten more into contemporary, and that's fine. But what about the good old traditional music that grandma used to listen to? You know,
Well, that's right. And look, us sitting there next to grandma. Uh,
yeah,
yeah, it is a shame because their voices were the instrument.
yes, yes,
It was incredible what they were able to do with blending their voices. Just the whole uh, international
yeah,
quartet genre.
yeah,
Well, I hope that young people will be introduced to that phenomenal
yeah.
sound. Many of these groups came to Greensboro to perform, but one young man in particular you were able to meet, Mr. Lee Williams. Mr. Williams was, as you said, the lead singer for the Spiritual QC. The Spiritual QCs went from being a part time gospel group to recording artist of the year. The group's first album was Jesus is Alive and Well, which included the breakout hit, I've Learned to Lean.
Mhm.
The third album in 2000, named Good Time, reached the top 10 of Billboard's Gospel Albums chart. You met Lee Williams. Tell us about the man.
He was a quiet type of guy. He was more like Jerry Butler on the stage, Sister Addie. He didn't have a lot of gymnastics on stage, as they call it, but Lee was the most fascinating guy. You watch him sing, and all he would do was stand there and sing, but pat that right foot, and the crowd would start out sort of slow, but after about a couple of 2 or 3 songs, he had that audience in the palm of his hand. And on one of his albums, I thought this was interesting. Uh, on one of his albums, there was a selection on there called "Going Fishing," and so I was out on his bus there with him, interviewing him one day for my gospel radio show, and I said, "Brother Lee Williams, tell us about that song, 'Let's Go Fishing.'" Well, really, what it meant, "Let's go be a fisher of men," but he said his buddies, they wanted to go play ball or something, and he wanted to go fishing. So he slipped off and started fishing by himself. And the words came to him: "Let's go fishing. Let's go be a fisher of men." I thought that was pretty interesting.
Wow. You get
Yeah,
inspiration from many different places. I'm glad you shared that with you.
yeah,
I'm glad you had the insight to even ask about
yeah.
it. Mr. Tate, this was the 1960s and 70s, the height of the civil rights movement. Music, we know, has been the magic that brings different groups of people together, filing into the Coliseum that could not have been possible without crossover white fans, even in the midst of racial segregation. We talked about the white clubs receiving Black artists. Tell me about the Coliseum with the crossover and blending of ethnicities.
Yes, of course, what the black artists, most of the crowd was black, African American, but there was because that music, the Motown sound and all, had crossover appeal, and that music will never die. But yeah, we were all in there together.
And you've had some experiences with people coming to you and sharing that they listen to you on the radio in their youth. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's a very interesting story. I've had a number of white uh, uh, members or listeners that come up and say, "Well, listen, brother Sam, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but when we were growing up, our parents wouldn't let us listen to that. You know what kind of music? But when we went to Myrtle Beach, the mom and dad weren't down there, and they got into the Tams, the Motown sound, and everything else. So the point I'm trying to make is that it became the what they call beach music, and they quit calling it rhythm and blues, but they call it beach music.
Civil rights and racial tensions. When Martin Luther King was killed, the community was angry. What role did the radio station staff play in quieting the community?
Well, I think we played a tremendous role because once the riots broke out, right after Dr. King was assassinated, of course, the curfews were on. Nobody was permitted to be out after 6 o'clock in the evening, and but we were in the media, and we were out and about, uh, didn't have to really stay on the inside. But I remember one night, Prince Ike behind the mic. Now, old Ike was a character. I have to tell you this. Ike was very light complected, and he had no business going downtown, down on Market Street, where all the rioting and all was going on. Anyway, he jumped in the car and went down there anyway. And apparently, some of the people out there raising all the sand thought he was white, and they started throwing bricks and everything at him. He turned around, came back, and I'll never forget. We were all in the studio there, all the announcers, and he came in the back door, his eyes as big. He turned pale, and you could hear him all over the station. Damn this! To rope it off and all. We got on the radio and said, "Look here, mommy and daddy, we're gonna have a big disco party down there on Market Street Friday night. We're gonna go down. We're gonna have a ball, and after it's over, we're going home, and we want you to go home." And I never will forget. We went down there, had a ball. The disc jockeys, Prince Ike behind the mic, Slick Slack, Brother Alfred G, Merle the Pearl, Sam the Sham, and all of us were there with playing the records and all. Law enforcement had it roped off. Everybody out there in the middle of Market Street dancing and carrying on. And then after that was over, we went home, and Sister Addie, that audience went home, and the riots were over. And that night, I learned the power of that microphone. That microphone is a powerful thing.
Absolutely. It reinforced your already commitment and respect for the mic, the radio, and the people behind the mic.
Yes, yes.
You love that radio and learned at an early age that it was magical. I met you in 2022 when you received an award from the Arts Museum in Blowing Rock, North Carolina, outside of Boone. And I remember you telling a story about young Sam and the radio. Share that with our audience.
Was that the story about me tearing into the back of the radio? I tell you, I could not understand how a big old man like John R. from WLAC in Nashville, Tennessee, and I must have been about 4 years old, how he crammed himself into that little radio, into that little box. So when Mom got to me, I was right ready. I was tearing into the back of it. I was right ready to touch a tube. It's a wonder I didn't get electrocuted, but I found out, I needed to be careful, but I'll never forget that.
Absolutely. That you progressed into, using the corn cob for a mic, but
Yeah.
but it seemed like from an early age you were destined to hold a mic in your hand and be
Yes.
affiliated with the radio.
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Tate, I thank you so much for sharing your stories. We've learned so much. But there's so much to learn. Listening to you, I've become fascinated to learn more about radio announcers. So, would you join us again and talk about this whole industry of radio announcers and their contribution to American music and culture? Will you join me for that?
Yes, I'll be glad to. Maybe the next time we can talk more about the Black Radio Announcers Hall of Fame, where the legacies are being honored for a change.
Absolutely. I thank you so much. You
Thank
have
you.
a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll be in touch. Thank you so
Next
much.
time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Please subscribe, like, comment, and click the bell for notification of new videos.